I'm Joyce.
And we're here along the eastern banks of the Fox River in downtown Geneva, Illinois. Today we're going to be doing the Geneva Spur, the Geneva branch of the Chicago, Aurora and Elgin Railway. This was the shortest lived of the branches of the Chicago, Aurora and Elgin. It started in 1909, was established in 1909, and then it was put out of use in 1937 due to low ridership as well as competition from some other railways. The branch consisted of 11 stops in total, including the Geneva Terminal as well as Geneva Junction. Geneva Junction was also part of the Elgin branch. The branch also featured 5 bridges as well as 4 sidings. The trackway was a single trackway. It was powered by third rail through most of its run. There was a few places, particularly in West Chicago, where it was powered by overhead trolley wires, but otherwise it was by the third rail. So we're just going to enjoy the river for a few minutes, and then we're going to head on to the first station, the Geneva Terminal, which is just over the bridge behind us, a few blocks down at 305 West State Street. We'll see you there. We're here at 305 West State Street in downtown Geneva, Illinois. Right across the street is Nobel House, which is a restaurant which used to be the Geneva Terminal back in the day, prior to 1937. This station was started in 1909 and was shut down in 1937 when this branch of the railway closed down. This station was also a transfer point for the Fox Valley line that headed south and north of here, and you could take the train from here also all the way up to St. Charles. But the start of the Geneva line formally commenced here with the Geneva Terminal right across the street. The Geneva Terminal was a full-service station with a lunch counter, a ticket agent, and with street boarding. You would buy a ticket inside and then come out and board the train in the street on trains which would head either west and north to St. Charles or east toward Chicago. Off camera, I had the chance to speak with the owner of the Nobel House restaurant, Dave Chilio, who was very welcoming. He said that their restaurant has been in business for about 6 years and that they're currently in the process of expanding. He also told me that the Nobel House was named for Swedish industrialist Alfred Nobel of Nobel Prize fame. And we were to find that this was one of many Swedish connections related to the city of Geneva. The Nobel House restaurant is well rated, and so if you're in the area, you can stop in and catch a bit of CA&E history, as well as enjoy their fine food and welcoming atmosphere. The terminal building itself was built in 1910 by George Kendall, a developer. He also built the 2 buildings to the west of the terminal in 1909, and so the terminal building was an extension of these original buildings. In fact, the expansion of the Nobel House restaurant mentioned earlier is into these very same buildings. The terminal building now occupied by Nobel House has clearly had some revisions to its original facade, and so no longer matches the front exterior of its 2 older siblings to the west at 307 and 309 West State Street. We'll next head east, north, and then east again to the Good Templar Park Station, and so we'll see you there in just a few minutes. Okay, we've just climbed the hill to arrive at Good Templar Park Station, or originally Dodson Road. This station was originated in 1909 as Dodson Road. It appears to have been originally named after Benjamin and Nellie Dodson, who were local farmers and who are buried just a short distance from here, about half a mile, in the Oak Hill Cemetery, I believe. The actual station was located at the northwest corner of Dodson Road over there and the trackway. So there's the trackway right there, and in this area here, starting from about right here, there was a long cinder platform, and it terminated a few hundred feet in that direction with a wood frame structure about 8 by 8 with a hipped roof, and presumably that this much larger station with a long platform, because it extended a few hundred feet or more, was due to the Good Templar Park. When it was probably opened, such a station did not exist, at least not to that size here originally. The name was changed to Good Templar Park in the 1920s when a Swedish cultural group in Chicago purchased the property just north of here that they named Good Templar Park, and primarily to hold their annual Swedish Day festival that occurred every year.
Geneva still holds their Swedish days every summer. Possibly not this summer due to coronavirus, but I'm not sure of the dates, but it's generally held in the downtown Geneva area every summer.
So maybe that was a continuation of that tradition. But Good Templar Park still exists. They did sell off part of this property, and you can see the line of the electrical poles. So the electric utility still has the right-of-way for the electrical poles of what was formerly the trackway for the Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin Railway. And that's just a little aside that if you're ever in doubt about which way the trackway went, just follow the electrical poles, because that will tell you. You'll notice that this street along here curves off to the right, whereas those electrical poles continue on. The reason why that this is no longer Prairie Path, in case you're wondering, or Fox River Trail, and why the pathway stops there, is because I believe it was in the 1990s that some of the landowners along in here filed a lawsuit to prevent Commonwealth Edison, the electric utility, from sharing the right-of-way with the Prairie Path or the Fox River Trail. And so they put an end to that, and as a result, this part of the trackway has been deprecated. One thing to note as well is that the official Prairie Path or Fox River Trail has been detoured at this point, heading north a few blocks and then wrapping around what remains of Good Templar Park, and then joins back in with the Fox River Trail by the river's edge. We took something that more closely approximates the original path of the trackway, just to stay a little more true to the original line and to bring us to this point. So we'll see you at the next stop. just ridden the 0.7 miles to the next station, which is Kirk Road, and that station would have been right behind me here on the northeast corner of the intersection of the trackway with what is now a very busy Kirk Road. This station was originated in 1909 and closed down in 1937. It would have been fairly close to the road here, right about in that area, close to where the telephone pole is today. And this was a flag stop. It likely had a cinder platform that ran along in this area here, and a small wooden waiting structure, probably not more than 4x4, 6x6. There was also a siding on the south part of the trackway, so the southeast corner along in here would have been one of the sidings along this branch, just to the right of the trackway as you're heading east. Now, the Kirk Road stop was likely named in honor of Joseph and Anna Kirk, whose property extended to this point. Today you can see, in lieu of the station, there's a lot of wild grape vines growing all along in here. And yes, they do yield grapes, and yes, they are edible, but they are a bit tart. Okay, so the next stop is Kautz Road, which is about a little over a mile from here. So we've just ridden the approximately 1 mile from Kirk Road now to the Kautz Road station. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. But in any case, this station stop would have been located right along in here, along the line of these telephone poles. Again, if you want to follow the line of the original trackway, just follow the line of the telephone poles right along here. And as you could see, we went through an area that is now private property. It looks like some commercial plant is located there now. So you have to, the bikeway, trailway takes you around that commercial property. But we'll be linking back up with the original trackway right here. And you can see the remnant of the trackway still exists here and goes up to the parking lot, although it's covered with weeds right now. It would have consisted of about a 100-foot cinder platform and possibly a wooden shelter along somewhere up in there. It likely would have been located, based on aerial photographs, a few hundred feet from the west edge of Kautz Road. So a few hundred feet over there and on the north side, so somewhere in that vicinity. This would have been used for loading and unloading of milk containers, as back in the day it would have been a very rural area, and farmers would have needed a way of transport of their dairy to and from the the larger venues such as Chicago. Being out in the middle of nowhere, it probably didn't get a lot of traffic, probably more traffic from freight than passengers, and it would have been a flag stop. So turning around, we'll be heading off again east. The next station will wrap around the area for DuPage County Airport. So we're going to run into another deprecated portion of the trackway shortly, going around DuPage County Airport, again, I think veering to the south as I recall. There's also a golf course just to the south of the trackway. So as we head through this portion, we'll have plenty of open ground, airport to the left, golf course to the right. So we just came from the west, and turning around again, you can see the classic forest of electrical poles that guide us as we continue on with the trackway for Chicago. So the Kress Road station was located on the northeast corner of the intersection of the trackway with Kress Road, right here. It would have consisted of a long cinder platform, perhaps 100 feet long, and possibly a small frame, wood frame shelter, 4x4, 6x6 with a slant roof, something of that order. But this would have been a rural stop, a flag stop. It would have been primarily for loading, unloading freight, such as milk containers, dairy products, etc., for farmers to get their goods to market. A few other facts to mention while we're out here is that the Kress Road was likely named in honor of local farmers Chris and Caroline Kress, who had a farm nearby, and probably also gave their name to the Kress Creek and Kress Creek Country Club, etc. The other thing I would mention is that although this section of the trackway has been deprecated by the DuPage County Airport and a manufacturing plant, one of the nice things about it is that it is much more akin to the original trackway that existed 100 years ago, in that it was wide open and much more open terrain and no trees, much more rural, open prairie. So that's, I think, much more likely what we would have seen 100 years ago. So when you look at a lot of the early pictures, it's wide open. Now the prairie path, since it's been turned to a nature walkway, the trees have been allowed to grow and the bushes have been allowed to grow, and so it's much more enclosed. So the next stop is Grand Lake, which is perhaps a mile or so to the east, and we'll see you there. Okay, we're here at Grand Lake Boulevard in West Chicago, and we're at the Grand Lake Station, or the Lake Avenue Station as it was sometimes called. That station was located on the southeast corner of where Grand Lake Boulevard intersects with the pathway. And the pathway comes through that parking lot right there, if you can see where the barriers are. I believe the path is currently blocked because of water damage. But in any case, the station would have been located about right over there, probably about where the last car is parked down at the end of the parking area over there. This would have been a flag stop. It would have had a cinder platform and a wooden waiting platform structure, or a wooden structure for a waiting room, perhaps 4x4 or 6x6, relatively small. This is also where the power went from the third rail to the overhead trolley wires at this stop. So from here into the next station in West Chicago, downtown West Chicago, it was overhead trolley wires. So the next stop is in downtown West Chicago. One of the things I would say you'll notice that the trackway, the original trackway, has been deprecated somewhat through West Chicago. They've rerouted the pathway creatively, in some cases through parking lots and so on, primarily for safety, I would say. But the original trackway will approximate it, but we're not going to be going on the original trackway for much of this interval between Grand Lake Boulevard and the West Chicago station. So we'll see you there. We've arrived at the West Chicago station at 102 North Main Street in downtown West Chicago. It's roughly located at the southwest corner of Washington and Main Streets, just one building from the corner. This station was in business from 1909 until 1937, but note that the building that we see here today was not the same structure as stood here during the time of the Geneva Spur. The present building came later. The CA&E shared this building with the Public Service Company of Northern Illinois, an electric utility which was ultimately folded into Commonwealth Edison, which is today the largest electric utility in Illinois. Like other city terminals, the West Chicago station featured street boarding right in front of the station, heading either northwards along Fremont Avenue to the north, or heading south along Main Street, which was then called Depot Street, using overhead trolley wires for power in both directions. The next stop is also in West Chicago, although this one being in a much more rural setting, that being the High Lake Station, which also holds a small surprise for us. To get there, we won't be heading south along Main Street, which was the original route of the CA&E trains, since this busy street is not designed for bicycle traffic, but rather will go south along Turner Court Road, which is 1 block west and which today is the actual route of the Illinois Prairie Path. We'll see you next at the High Lake Station. Okay, we've left the West Chicago station and now just arrived at the High Lake station, or what's left of it. This is perhaps my favorite station of the stations on this particular branch. What do you think, Joyce?
Yeah, I know.
There's the most left of it. This actually used to be a fairly elegant station. There was a large brick pavilion, blonde brick pavilion with a clay tile roof. It was actually very nice. And with these elegant steps leading up to the platform right there. This was a single trackway along here with a third rail for power. We had left the overhead trolley wiring back about a half a mile to the east when we departed from Main Street on West Chicago and got on the Prairie Path. That's where the overhead trolley wiring converted back to the third rail power. This was opened in 1909. It was closed down in 1937, and as you can see, the substantial structure has been torn down, but the stairs remain. They kind of remind me a little bit of a Mayan temple for some reason, a small Mayan temple. But this is a nice little flag stop in the middle of nowhere, and this was a flag stop.
High Lake Station took its name from the High Lake subdivision. This subdivision advertised back in the early 1900s in order to lure Chicagoans to the countryside. It stated that there were poured concrete bungalows featuring flowers and foliage, beautiful green lawns, magnificent shade trees, pure health-giving air and water, charming playgrounds for the children, and a beautiful spring-fed lake, park, boating, fishing, community clubhouse, and all modern conveniences. High Lake itself was really more of a small lake or a large pond. It was maybe 200 feet across and was located 1/10 of a mile just south of the station. There was also a small siding just west of the station and south of the tracks.
So we've arrived here at the next station, which was originally Drexmoor Station, later changed to Fannette. It was established in 1909, and it was right along in here. There's no landmarks to guide us. But based on aerial photography, based on some old photographs, it was about 4/10 of a mile just due east of the High Lake Station on the north side of the tracks. So just in along this area right here. And although it seems a bit odd to put a station in the middle of nowhere like this, the history behind this is that it was the result of some shrewd negotiating by the landowner who owned the land just north of here. He negotiated that they could use the right-of-way, they could have the right-of-way across his property, but if and only if they gave him and his family a small station that they could utilize for their trips in and out of Chicago. The landowner was named Joseph Arendt. He was a Chicago lawyer and former president of the Chicago Board of Education. And he named the station, as well as his house, which was again just north of here, Drexmoor, after his wife, who was named Drexna. So his wife was Drexna Arendt, and the house was named Drexmoor, and the station was named Drexmoor. He died in 1912, however, and the house was passed to his brother Charles Arendt, who made it more of a full-time residence for his family. And the house was then rechristened Fannette, as well as the station. And Fannette was named after his mother-in-law, Fanny Schwartz, and the station here was named accordingly, and that's primarily what it's come down to us as the Fannette Station. There was a small waiting station here. It was about a 6x6 building with a hip roof, probably a cinder platform as well along here. There are no streets or other landmarks nearby the station, so it's a little bit more difficult to precisely locate. But as I mentioned, it's on the north side of the trackway, approximately 0.6 miles due west of where the IPP Geneva Spur starts west, about 3.3 miles, 1.3 miles due east of the intersection of Lake Drive Street with the trackway. This puts it about 0.4 miles due east of the High Lake Station. So onwards to the next station, which is Winfield Road, although that's going to be a bit problematic. About 0.6 of a mile down this way the Prairie path will end and curve off to the north. We're going to try to find the old bridge that went across the DuPage River. So we've arrived at the bridge that used to cross the DuPage River right here in the Winfield Mountains Forest Preserve. You can still see the supports within the riverbed itself, as well as on both sides of the river, although that one's collapsing inwards. And this was torn down by 1939, and we know that because the 1939 aerial photographs show that although the pylons, etc., and the foundation was still in existence, the actual structure as well as the railroad ties, etc., had all been torn up by 1939, just a few years within the closure of this branch, the Geneva branch. So I think it's still interesting that this still exists. 80 years on? More than 80 years on?
Yeah.
So now we head back out to the road and try to find the Winfield Road station. now arrived at the site of the Winfield Road Station. The 1961 book, The Great Third Rail, places the Winfield Road Station at the southeast corner of the intersection of the CA&E trackway with County Farm Road in Winfield, Illinois. But period photographs instead indicate that the station was on the north side of the trackway, as would be consistent with other stations along the Geneva Spur, so instead placing the station at the northeast corner of the intersection of the trackway with County Farm Road. You can see where the trackway intersected with County Farm Road by once again following the line of the utility poles coming from the east. In this case, the station would have been located to the south of the utility poles. And so the station would have been located between the utility poles and the mounded area, and about 30 feet due east of the County Farm roadway. The Winfield Road Station was a flag stop established in 1909 and closed down in 1937 with the shutdown of the Geneva Spur. The stop consisted of a small wooden frame structure, about 6 by 6 feet in dimension, with a hip roof and likely a cinder platform, about 1 car length or 30 feet in length. It is a bit of a mystery as to why the station was referred to as Winfield Road, since it was situated on County Farm Road. The actual Winfield Road did not go further north than downtown Winfield in the time frame of the railway, which is almost a mile to the south and west of the station. Nor are there any indications that County Farm Road was referred to as Winfield Road along this stretch. But we'll leave that mystery aside right now. The next and final stop on the Geneva Spur is Geneva Junction, and since the line between here and there has been deprecated by another subdivision, we'll need to make a small detour going back to the Elgin trackway and then onwards to Geneva Junction. Okay, we've reached the final stop, Geneva Junction, which we've been to before when we did the Elgin track. Remember that the Geneva branch merges with the Elgin branch a few miles west of Wheaton, and that's where we arrived to again. So the Geneva Junction station was located between where the Geneva branch forked off from the Elgin branch, and that was just about a third of a mile due west of Pleasant Hill Road along the trackway here. There was, as we talked about the last time, there was a siding to the north of here, and this station was in existence from about 1902 when it originally opened as Pleasant Hill, and then it became the Geneva Junction once the Geneva Spur came into being around 1909. And then once the Geneva Spur went out of existence in 1937, this station was renamed back to Pleasant Hill, and then it was in existence until about 1945 when it was closed down again, probably due to non-use. This was a flag stop, but if you were a passenger on the train coming from Geneva, you would have gotten off here, and then you would have gotten onto the train that would have met you here that was coming from Elgin. This trip normally would have taken about 23 minutes from Geneva to this spot. We took considerably longer on bicycle, but that's about how long it took if you were on the train. And then it took about another 7 minutes to get into Wheaton. So the total trip from Geneva to Wheaton was roughly 30 minutes, which isn't bad, actually,
Yeah.
for the early part of the 20th century. So just finishing up. It's been a good day, a warm day. We've explored the Geneva branch of the Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin Railway. We've completed that. That was 11 more stations, 11 more stops that we can tick off. We'll see you at our next adventure on the next branch of the Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin virtual tour. See you then.